We can start now. I think everybody is on. So welcome to our webinar. The topic of today is Stop Struggling with Data Privacy. And I'm Jan Hauser. You can see my contact details at the bottom of the slide. I'm like UK CEO of company Applifting, and together with me, I'd like to introduce you Karen Ho from Dataswift. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Jan. I'm Karen. I'm the VP of Product and Policy at Dataswift.
Okay, so shall we start? My slides. I have some trouble with slides, guys. Just a second. I'll fix it. Yeah, we go here. Before we even start, I'd like to ask you to join us on Slido. The session ID is B324, and we will have like a couple of live polling during the session, and we will do also Q&A through the Slido. So please open slido.com and join us with ID B324. And I will repeat the session ID a couple of times, so you can join us even later during the session. And I'll start with motivation for this. So we have met with Dataswift a couple of months ago, and we talked about what we do, what they do, and we got to regulations. So we probably know GDPR, and it is closely related to data privacy. But for the motivation, I'd be glad if we won't talk only about GDPR, because there is so much more. You probably know PSD2 from fintech and finance, banking, open banking. You probably heard about HIPAA regulations for health insurance. You probably know the International Organization of Standards. It's a lot more about like recommendations and standards than regulations, but it's also here in place. So it would be fantastic if we can just like broaden the topic, not only for GDPR, but for all the regulations. So what's on during this session? First thing will be, we will introduce us and we will introduce the companies, and then we will start with the case study from Applifting. The case study was done for platform Fedos, which was done in 2015, I guess. So it's not the newest thing, but it's pretty awesome. So I'd like to share it with you. I'll talk about the GDPR impacts on this platform. Then we will show you 3 possible approaches how to become GDPR compliant. Like 2 of them will be pretty obvious, but the third one is quite new, and it's something you can get with Dataswift, and it's awesome. And this will be something new you will get from this session. And I think that's a pretty cool thing. So let's wait for it. Here's the first polling. I would like you to join us on Slido B324, and I'm pretty much interested, where are you joining us from? So if you can, go there and let's try how it will work, this polling session. So I can show you, like, I'm joining from London. I'm gonna put it there so you can see it's working. So if you can, put there your location so we know where from. Yeah, pretty awesome. Thank you, guys. So we have somebody from Switzerland, also London, Prague, Czech Republic. Prague is basically the place where our headquarters from Applifting is. So I guess there are some guys from Applifting joining us. Cool. So we tried it, and there will be one more polling during the session, and then the Q&A. Q&A is the most important. So we are pretty glad that you are engaging with us. So we see that you are in Slido, and you will find a place to ask questions later. So let's continue. Cheers, guys. So who we are. I can start with Applifting, and then we will introduce you Dataswift as well. Applifting is basically software studio. Currently, we are more than 120 people. I'm leading this session from London, level 39, where we just recently opened a new branch. So we have our presence here in UK, and we are mostly focusing on digital product creation and technological innovation. And we are experts in fintech, and that's the space where we position ourselves like it's the most comfortable for us. There are a couple of brands we cooperated with. Most of them are from Europe, and yeah, I'd like to mention Lever is here. It's the closest partner from UK. These are Ireland guys offering like bank as a service. And there's one important point about Applifting. We try to lead the organization as the organization, and what it means is it's basically about distributing of power and the responsibilities to all the people. If you would be interested in this, just let me know via email and something like that, and we can discuss it further. Let's hop on Dataswift. So Karen, if you might, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jan. So Dataswift is a company that provides the technical and the legal capabilities so that the individuals can own their own personal data for the first time. So they own their personal data in the form of personal data accounts, and they can control who access that personal data via the personal data accounts. We call them PDAs. So we power policy-driven processes and portability of personal data as well. So Dataswift supports a broad domain of the data access. On the data access side, we allow our clients to access different types of personal data through data plugs, and we allow for the portability of the data so that the client businesses can take the data and then they can port it in a different ways. And also, we allow for custom computations to be performed on top of the personal data without exposing the content of the data to the business apps. So that means the businesses can access the insights and the summary of the data and export the processed data without being regulated. And finally, it is this core competency that we have is that we help our clients' apps reduce compliance overhead by taking them out of scope of GDPR and HIPAA and a number of regulations. So this is what Dataswift does, and Dataswift is a company with 40 people, and then we build on a very rigorous ethical framework and scalable technology.
Okay, so if I like, I'm just wondering, so people owns bank accounts and money, right? And you are doing the same with the personal data,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. So just shortly, who we are. This is how we work together. The program is called Jumpstart. We won't stay on slide much longer. 3 stages. We discover with you what are your needs. We can design the correct solution for you, and we are delivering it by implementation and so on. This is just like how we cooperate. And let's hop on the topic. So I'm gonna start with Fedos app. So what it means, Fedos, right? It's a bit weird shortcut. It stands for facilitating exchange of organs donated in EU member states. So it kind of covers European Union and exchange of organ for transplantation. So this platform which is kind of still widely used. I guess like 33 countries around Europe use this platform at the moment. It helps to save people's life, basically. If somebody is looking for an organ due to his situation, current situation in the hospital, let's say, and somebody else in the European Union can offer this organ, this platform is here to find a match and help to exchange these organs between the two places, which is kind of complicated between two different countries because of all the regulations, all the law stuff and stuff like that. So the process takes really long time, and this platform is here to make it easier. Shortly about the platform. It was created in 2015, very limited budget. We are talking about like 20 or 30,000 British pounds for this project. Currently, there were saved like more than 200 lives, meaning like more than 2 lives per month during these 7 years. And there are 33 countries in Europe participating on this platform, and UK is also a member of Fedos group. So shortly how it works, basically in the Fedos platform, it's not for like regular users. You need to be member of organizations which kind of covers these organ transplants, and these organizations get access to Fedos platform. They can offer organs for the country, for the specific country, if the organs are available, and they can either request organs for their patients inside the country. So there are two groups. You can imagine it as e-shop for like human organs, but I don't like saying this because it looks like black market. It is not black market. Okay, this is official for all the organizations, so they can kind of pre-agree the organ exchange, and they need to get in touch even after interacting inside Fedos platform, and they need to call themselves and fill all the paperwork which is necessary for this. Okay, so there are organ requests, organ offers, they can match and create pre-agreements, and the actual deal is currently done off the platform because it was not possible to do it inside the budget we got for this project. So who is actually a member of this platform? There are 3 parts and there are 3 sources of data and 3 kind of relations to GDPR, because as we know, it's a regulation for data privacy. And I would like to start with organ entity data. These are the health records or health data for the specific organs. And these data are not considered as GDPR relevant data because you cannot identify the person just using these organ data. So this is off GDPR topic. Then we onboarded the organizations into the platform, and there are some organization data, so name of the organization and the address and stuff like that as well. These are not GDPR related data. So the only source of the GDPR related data are the members of the organizations and their details. So having this data in the platform, we need to take care about the rights of the people who join the platform. Just shortly, I won't go deeper in this thing, but just shortly so we know who is who in this Fedos app talking about GDPR related stuff. So we have the users, members of organizations, right? Then we have Fedos organization or Fedos platform, and we have some processor, meaning somebody who created and maintained this platform. This processor is Applifting. Fedos as organization is called controller, and users, these are users. So for Fedos, there is necessity to check the consents with user. So users are filling the data into the platform, and Fedos as a controller need to check that user agree with them kind of working with their data. But they fill it into the platform, which was created by Applifting, right? So how does it work there? Between Fedos and Applifting, as a processor, there must be signed agreement. So everything is by law and everything is kind of GDPR compliant. This agreement basically says that Applifting as a processor will operate the data for Fedos as a controller. So this is kind of how it works, because each time you have some organization or some company which kind of offers the platform, and each time you have some vendor or tech company which kind of created the platform in a technical way and maintain it afterwards. And actually, what are the user rights which needs to be fulfilled or accessed for the users? Basically, we have 8 important parts here, or 8 important rights, which I will mention. The first one is the right to consent. So you need to inform the users before they enter the platform that you are gonna operate with their data. So they need to know what you're gonna do with the data. There is right to access, so users can get the data flow from the platform and see what kind of data you operate with, so they can access their data in the platform. Then there is the right to data portability. So users can transfer data from one service provider to another. Then there is a right to erasure, or something, what is more common, the right to be forgotten. So user can ask to delete all the data in the platform, and you have to do so. And the last, not the last thing, the fifth right is the right to correct information. So you can basically change your profile inside the platform, change your profile details. And there is the right to restrict processing. So users can ask to not process their data anymore. So if they ask for this, you cannot kind of operate with the data and do whatever operations with the data you do. Then there is right to object. So users can stop processing of their data for direct marketing. So they can say, you probably met this in all the email subscriptions and stuff like that. You basically, via the email, you should have this ability to unsubscribe for all the marketing communications. And there is the right to be notified of breaches, which is very important. So if there is any kind of data leak or kind of breach, the platform or the organization, the controller, has to notify you that it happened. So you can do some steps to make sure that about your privacy. So you can change the passwords and stuff like that wherever you need to. Yeah, this is the second part. I'd like to check with you. I was talking about GDPR, mostly about GDPR. But as I mentioned in the beginning, there is much more like in a number of regulations. And if you can vote for me and on this kind of active poll, so I know which kind of regulations you struggle the most with. What is your daily bread? I'll vote myself as well. If I find the regular polling here, yeah. So we are getting somewhere. I'll leave it here for a while. Okay, there's some HIPAA and other as well. I think the GDPR is the most common, right?
Yeah, I voted as well.
Yeah, we have the PSD2, which is popular as well, right? And the open banking and yeah. Okay, I think GDPR is the topic, the hot topic here. So let's continue. Thank you for engagement, guys. I guess that we will continue like doing this together during Q&A session to be the last part of your possibility to ask us something. So finally getting to the point, I just talked about Fedos app, how it works, what are the GDPR related data, and what are the rights of the users. But how to fulfill these rights, right? How to make it available for the users. There are probably two main approaches you know about, and there is a new one we would like to introduce you. So the first approach is you can code all the functionalities, right? You can code it yourself. It will cost you time and money for creating everything. But before even doing it, there are some necessities for all the steps or all the approaches which needs to be done to become GDPR compliant. You should do the security audit and risk analysis and appropriate steps following these two. Then you should store the data in Europe because GDPR is Europe-related regulation. And so even for a company from US creating a platform, they need and offering it for European market, they need to store it in Europe. They need to store the data in Europe. Then you need to do the risk mitigation session. You need to find some security things for the platforms. So you need to make sure that the storage is secure enough. You need to make sure for data integrity. Yeah, I mentioned here the ISO 27001, which is kind of related, really closely related to GDPR. It does not cover everything, but it is like recommendations, and it makes everything much easier to become GDPR compliant. They mention like access rights and separation of the production and development for your platform and stuff like that. So this is a must for GDPR compliance. And then I'm finally getting to the approach. You can prepare the functionalities in order to let the people to access their rights. Example, you can offer them like delete button in their profile. You can offer them to change their profile. You make sure that everybody knows what data you own and stuff like that. It takes time to create these functions in your platform, and it costs you money as well. So you kind of need to delay your launch of your fantastic product in order to like access this stuff for the users. The second possible approach is that you don't create the stuff for users, but then if they want to delete their account or change anything, or if they want to get the data you kind of own, you need to do it for them in a manual approach. So you need to call the technical leader, ask him to dig the data out of the platform or delete everything from the platform. And it's kind of, I would say it's really painful to do it this way. For Fedos platform, we did kind of combination of first 2 points according to the risk analysis we did. And it was also caused because of the costs for the platform or the budget we had available. But in 2015, we didn't know that there exists something like Dataswift and their personal data account. But like if we knew it, we could probably launch it faster and save some money for the functionalities, like to accessing it by coding it and preparing it for users. So here's the third approach. You can go with Dataswift, right? So Dataswift offers you personal data account. So they take care of the GDPR related data, and you can launch like from scratch. You don't have to actually care because they are compliant. You can sign for them and sign the contract with them and let them to take care of the personal data, right?
Yes. So which leads to the next slide, which is how
no, this one.
Yeah,
Here we are.
Which is how it actually works. So as Jan said, Dataswift takes care of all the GDPR compliance requirements by letting the user own their own personal data. So first of all, when a user creates an account on Fedos, they are actually creating a personal data account offered by Dataswift. So in this way, the user will see an extra screen, which is okay, like you're actually creating your own personal data account powered by Dataswift, but then the entire user journey and the user experience will be the same otherwise. Then the personal data account allows the user to legally own the personal data. So Dataswift offers the complete legal code, the governance framework, and the oversight and the stewardship of the personal data account ecosystem, so that Dataswift has a contract between Dataswift and the users, such that even Dataswift would be illegal for Dataswift to access the actual content of the data inside of the personal data account. And the governance side of things actually ensures that this contract is upheld between the user and Dataswift. And with the security framework, the governance framework, and the protocol on the processor side, this is the user will be able to legally own the personal data and have access to the economic rights of the data as well. So now Fedos can access, store, and share the data through the personal data account via APIs. So even though Fedos doesn't necessarily store the personal data themselves within the app, but they can access the data via APIs as if it is like a seamless operations workflow. So the entire hassle of being compliant goes away on Fedos side, because now they can use the data, they can access the data, and they can authenticate their users. However, they do not need to store the data and be compliant of GDPR, because now the users legally own their own data for the first time in history.
Okay, so let's talk how it works.
Yeah, how it works. So for the user, this is the actual flow. So without Dataswift, the user lands on the Fedos app, and then they sign up, and then they hit a sign up screen. They create accounts, they click login, right. Consent, and then click login, and then they are directed to the actual app. But with Dataswift on the right, we see that everything is actually exactly the same. So they land on the app, and then, but instead of seeing the sign up screens offered by Fedos, they see a Fedos sign up screen, but powered by Dataswift one. So Dataswift. So then they have this, they sign up for the personal data account via this embedded sign up flow inside of the Fedos app. And then once they have completed, they verify the emails and everything is like authenticated, and then they go back to the app. It is like a seamless experience as if they are not using any other embedded flows. So
where is the main advantage here? It is that the data actually, you didn't have to take care about the compliance, right?
Exactly, not have to take care of the compliance. And then on the user side, when they sign up for Dataswift, they already give consent for Fedos to access the personal data. but the ownership of the data, the storage of the data will be in the personal data account.
Okay, okay, I see.
So next.
Here we go.
Here we go. So now this is the before and after for Feedus. So Feedus previously, they have the app, and then in the back end of the app, they have different types of data. Yang said there's organizational data, organizational personal data, there's the organ related data, there's the personal data. And now with Dataswift, we separated out a little gated vote, which is the personal data through the personal data account. So the Feedus app would communicate to that data via APIs, and then communicate to the normal backend data as if they are not using Dataswift. The only difference is that for the personal data, they have to communicate and access that via APIs.
Okay, this is my slide again.
Yeah.
I'd like to just wrap it up into some message you can get as an outcome from all this. So we were talking about the free approaches, and this is kind of how the Dataswift approach with data privacy account can influence or change everything a bit. So before using it, Fedos was GDPR compliant, but it cost money and time before launch, right? But in case they could go the way with Dataswift, they would be GDPR compliant as well, even quicker, and the data itself would be owned by the users and not the Fedos. So users can access all the rights related to GDPR just because Fedos and Dataswift cooperated and do everything together, and Fedos does not have to do anything. So there are some costs, right? But in order to use the Dataswift and PDA, but there are no like extra costs for coding additional GDPR features or digging the digging the data out of the system, or like increasing data storage security to become compliant and stuff like. Of course, like there needs to be some some security features necessary for the platform, but not necessarily to become GDPR compliant. So you can basically focus on the platform itself, and you don't have to bother with the regulations. And even the users will be happy because they know where their data are stored, and like how to access them, how to delete them, how to unsubscribe, how to do how to like comply all the rights they have. And this is kind of the last part of our talk. We are getting closer to Q&A session. I'm wondering like for your questions. I guess there will be much more. I hope you are getting interested. But this is something like my personal brainstorming, where the cooperation between Dataswift and Fedos can take the Fedos platform. So they can even introduce the healthcare facilities and patients' data into the app, because they don't have to be aware of GDPR anymore, and they can kind of put also the further administration of wait lists for organ transplantations, and they could do it everything in the platform itself, so it can like crucially speed up whole the process, and it can kind of save even more lives. So if we would go this way, and if we would like connect Fedos and Dataswift, the whole system of organ exchange would become much more transparent, and people would do everything much quicker than it was right now or it was before. we can introduce the extended medical records as well, because the data storage will be compliant. The result will be obvious, right? Everything will be quicker, and we can even save more lives. So there are just two blockers or two things, because the smooth data management will be fulfilled by Dataswift and PDAs. There is just one blocker, and it's the budget for Fedos team. So I'll talk to them. I will introduce them the solution, and let's see if they will like it and if they can even do this in the future. And as I promised in the beginning, it's not just GDPR, right, Karen?
Yeah, it's not just GDPR. The same principle applies to different industries where there are regulated data and sensitive data sets. For example, health tech, the electronic health records from hospitals, from clinics, and fintech, or banking, lending, alternative lending, health, HR tech, government tech. For example, even when we talk about different countries, some countries have even tighter privacy policies than GDPR, like Germany and Austria. They are actually super tight around a certain aspect. So by letting the users own their own data and using the PDAs, we help the businesses stay out of scope of these privacy concerns. So it is because now the users are able to have control, and they can control who connects the data, and then they have full control, and they own their own personal data. So all of these goes away naturally.
Okay, I think this kind of wrap up whole the session, and we are smoothly getting to Q&A session, which we like go to slido.com, put there any question, it should show up here. And we have one question there already, but despite that, I'd like to start the conversation here, and I'd like you, Karen, answer the first questions, like what are the other benefits of using PDA? You can kind of say what are the main pillars or benefits.
Sure. So the main pillars are there are four. So first, in this presentation, we discussed the regulations compliance aspect. So we completely remove the overhead of compliance. But the other three pillars are that now that the users own their own personal data in their personal data accounts. First of all, the users can submit data subject access requests to different data sources, for example, Facebook or Experian or different data sources, to plug that data, direct that data into their personal accounts.
They can do it via our platform?
They can do it via our platform, okay. Yes. We have built-in data plugs, and the businesses and the apps are free to create their own data plugs to do this. And then through this, the apps can access the types of data that is otherwise very hard to access. For example, healthcare data through the 5 different clinics. The apps can actually instruct Dataswift to connect the data through the personal data accounts with those specific clinics. And the healthcare data will be stored in separate namespaces inside of the personal data account in a very clean way.
Okay, and just to make sure to keep it fully transparent, so you have the PDA, personal data account, and there is the Facebook data source, let's say.
Yes.
And if you connect it, you have to ask the user, right, if they agree?
Yes. So the user have to give consent.
Yeah.
Then the relationship is actually between users and Facebook. So the actual consent is for the users to say, okay, users say, I want my data back from Facebook. So right now, today, they have to go to Facebook and they click a button and they download an Excel file onto their machine. So this is how you access data via GDPR. But with Dataswift, with the data plug in Facebook, the user can actually get the data and have that stored in the personal data account.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah. Then businesses can access that Facebook data.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Karen. I think we can hop. We already have 3 questions here, so we can hop on it. Let's start with the first one. Does Dataswift support PIPEDA? I hope I'm saying it in the correct way. It's a Canadian GDPR-like law.
Yes. The fundamental principles apply. but I'm happy to discuss it more in depth in terms of what aspect. But then all the data privacy laws that applies to centralized systems where one system stores a ton of users' data, all of that privacy laws will be exempt when the users own their personal data in the personal accounts in a decentralized infrastructure. So happy to discuss more. Feel free to reach out to Jan and myself. But yes.
I would like to dig a bit deeper. If there is some new regulation, like how does Dataswift behave? You just make sure that you fulfill all the conditions of the new regulation which pop out. Is it correct?
So a lot of the regulations are something to do with a centralized system. So they try to regulate the businesses who actually controls the data. So whenever the privacy regulations takes place in that aspect, then it is actually exempt for personal data accounts. But yeah, we don't know what in the future would come. Maybe another body will come up, regulatory body will come up with new laws who wants to regulate certain other aspects of that. So we don't know what will happen.
Okay. The second question is for me. It's to Applifting. What do you see as the most common and costly mistakes enterprises make when handling PII? I had very related conversation with leader of Fedos about this, and he basically told me that they don't automatize stuff and they don't let the user to access their rights, and they handle everything manually. And in this order, if you take a look on government, for example, and financial organizations and stuff like that, he told me that it would take enormous amount of time for them to dig out all the related data to the users. So they kind of struggle with this a lot. So they don't make sure they access all the rights for the users. And having it done, having it accessible for the user, it even makes the company life much easier. So this would be my answer. Would you like to add something?
No, that was great.
What is? Do you have something different for the enterprises, or you can say no? It's fine.
I think touching on a slightly different point. So the costly enterprise mistakes is to do with security actually. So
that's a good point.
There is a saying that there's no privacy without security, but there can be security without privacy. So sometimes when the enterprises they have a security breach, then maybe when they are transmitting the PII data and then they got intercepted, and can be any types of breach, then that is a huge risk for them.
Yeah.
So touching on that, the benefit of having a decentralized infrastructure to store personal data is that the surface of attack is much smaller, because each of the personal data accounts is stored in a separate microserver, and they are not in a big multi-tenanted kind of data storage. So on that side, at an infrastructure level, at least in the infrastructure level, that security risk is lower if they are all decentralized and quite separated.
Yeah, what is interesting here is that GDPR, as the regulation, it doesn't say how you should behave in the matter of security, right?
Indeed.
It says what you should do, but it doesn't say how. And it's maybe why the ISO 27001 is important for this, because there is more, and you can find some advices there.
Indeed.
What we got as the other question is: Dataswift also in the privacy preserving analytics or machine learning business by means of MPC? It's the controllers.
Yeah.
And federated learning, FAG. I'm not sure what is FAG. It means I think we can generalize a bit the question. It would be, let's say, about the machine learning and AI. I'm not sure if it will be something different for you.
I think
yeah, you can
I'm not
mention
sure
you can mention the functions.
yeah, I
you
can mention the
offer.
functions. So I have a feeling that this has something to do with encryption, but the general idea is that if we just tackle the privacy preserving analytics part, and I think F actually has something to do with encryption, and I think that's the in spirit. So I'll answer this question in spirit. So the answer is yes, in a certain way. So as Jan mentioned, so Dataswift allows the businesses to process and conduct analytics or custom calculations on top of the raw data, yet preserving the privacy and the actual content of the data. So you'll be able to access the structure of the data via the Dataswift APIs, and then you can create models on top. And then via the serverless she function inside of Dataswift, you can actually do the calculations there.
Okay.
And then the output, you can then take the processed data as output, which is not regulated data anymore. So in that sense, you can conduct analytics and you can peek into the data sets. You can almost do research on data science side on the different data sets without being regulated yourself and also preserving the actual privacy of the content of the data.
Okay, and it works like some kind of Lambda functions you can run on your servers as well.
Yes.
And is it also possible to take the data out, do some processing on side of the platform itself, the business, and then store the data back in Dataswift? Is it possible?
We would not. It is possible. We would not recommend you actually take the raw data out, because then you have the issue of the regulations. You have to be like FCA compliant, and the beauty of this is you don't have to take the data out, but actually you perform the calculations and then you take the output out.
Yeah, but maybe this is also what is related to this question, because there is the fully homomorphic encryption. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. And yes.
You know what's the advantage of homomorphic encryption? It basically is that you can encrypt the data, do some kind of calculation without like decrypting it, and then getting the same result. Like, so you take the data, let's say 2 numbers, you encrypt them, you add them together, and you encrypt it, add them together, and you decrypt it, and you have the correct result. This is the homomorphic encryption, basically.
Well, actually, this is very cool.
So it might be the thing I was mentioning, right? Like taking the encrypted data out,
I see, yes,
doing the operation, and putting it back into the platform, right?
Yes, actually, this is totally possible, because at an architectural level, this is just almost like the data flows that we support. I would imagine when you put it back to the platform, you would put it in a separate namespace, so it will not corrupt the original data sets. So, but yeah, thanks for this question. So actually, this is inspiring the potential product roadmap on our side.
So we answered all the questions. If you have something more, we still have 9 minutes, so you can ask. I would have one more for Karen, and if there will be something new, we will answer it for sure. So Karen, if we get to actual example of the data flow via the platform and via the business cooperating with PDA, we kind of described how it works, but could you tell us some example?
One example is a client that we have, which offers alternative credit scores. To calculate alternative credit scores, that client needs multiple data sources. It can be data source.
Sorry, the credit scoring.
Scoring for lending.
Okay.
So the clients will need access to, say, social media data via Facebook, some other credit score data from Experian, and then some 3 to 4 more data sources. So how the data flow works is that the client onboard the users. So the users sign up to that client's app, and the users give consent to this client, say, okay, yes, I will give you this and this and this access to this data. And then the data plugs are in place with Facebook, with the different data sources. And now the next step is the user, via the PDAs, the personal data accounts, actually submit a data subject access request to Facebook directly. So this
is it So let's say you have the platform and you want to access the Facebook data. Is it you who ask Facebook as a platform who asks Facebook for the data, or is it the user who has to do it?
It is all one flow. The user is not even aware that this is happening, but the user only needs to give consent. Exactly. They only need to give consent during the sign-up flow. Then all those data access, data plugs, they happen under the in the background. In the background. Yeah. So in the background, the data will be pulled from Facebook into the personal data account. So the user doesn't need to do anything. All the user knows is just they signed up to that client's alternative lending score app.
Yeah, I understand.
And then all the different data sources, once they are put into the personal data accounts, they are stored in separate namespaces. So Facebook has its own namespace, Experience has their own namespace, and different data sources have their own namespace. And this,
so it's separated.
Yeah, basically. All separated, very, very clean ownership rights. Then what this client does is they then go into the PDA, and the user have given them consent to access these data. So they go into the separate namespaces and take the data out, and they do some data crunching. Okay, now here is this user's alternative data score for lending. So this is their business. Their business is to generate that data score, credit score. And then they place the credit score back into a separate namespace. Inside of that.
So there's no mixing of the data from different sources, right?
Yes.
There's no space for the mistakes that somebody can access something what is not wanted. Yeah, right?
Exactly, totally, yes. So this legal ownership of data and the namespace and the data rights makes it super clean.
Okay. Yes. So yeah, I'm wondering, we went through the questions. Yes. There is nothing more at the moment. We will let you, if you have something, just put it there. There is a Q&A session in Zoom, actually. Yeah, something is asking here. It's not through Slido, but through Zoom, so we can answer it as well. It says, as a project manager, do I need to ask my developers to learn new skills to use Dataswift?
Not at all. It is actually a super simple set of APIs, and then we have documentations, we have the sandbox environment. It takes a few minutes to actually create an example app in Sandbox, and there's no new language needed, no architecture to learn. It is just a few API calls, and you can
create an link. You get a link, and you get documentation.
Yes, you get documentation.
And that's all you need.
That's
right?
all. Yes.
Okay, that's wonderful. So I hope also this question is answered, and I'll put there, answer live, done. It's answered. Correct. Nothing new here. We have 4 minutes to go. So I think the Q&A, we can over the Q&A session. And as the, wrong slide. Just a second, yeah. As the last thing for this session, we would like to thank you for your time. We will let you know about future sessions, either for Dataswift or Applifting. If you have any further questions, let me know on the email address, or Karen on her email address, or let us a call. We are online, so we will be very happy to answer any further questions. And yeah, I guess that's it. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you so much. As Jan said, it's been a pleasure. And if you have any questions, let us know, and look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. I'm going to end this session and have a wonderful rest of the week. Bye.